Welcome to TradeTheMBA.com. This is John's report is for the 17th. As we get closer to that Thanksgiving holiday, it's going to be an interesting one, given what we're seeing. Recommendations of no Thanksgiving gatherings. Yet we have a vaccine. So the dichotomy is ever present, but the expectation for the market is that there will be more stimulus, that an additional round of quantitative easing will need to be released. Eurozone is looking for at least, a 5% contraction in GDP or something, given the fact that pretty much all of Europe is shutting down. It's a mess. There's just no other way to describe it. And we're up at 3,600 on the ES. Not a shock, because we were talking about 4,000. Still a ways to go from that, and it's going to take a little more time, but on track. I mean, that's all you can really say. I mean, everything we've been seeing from DOC reading, though we're starting to get a little bit congested right at the zero line, which is always problematic because you need to break above, and that would be for a significant blowout move. And we talked about this the other day, the relative benign power mode 2 right here from an expansion contraction standpoint. It's when they've contracted and they begin to expand, and we noticed it on the ES was much stronger. And that's what, that contraction and the separation in the direction of, the way we're headed, which was cyan under red here, led to the big move the other day. Now, of course, right now we're partly filling it. That's because we had a positive extreme. So potential is it could all get filled back in without any trouble and still be congruent. You don't have that taking place on the NASDAQ. So we've got a divergence between the two markets, and whenever you have that, you're going to add to volatility, and it's going to create I think nicer moves will be easier to read, but directionally they'll be fluid, meaning they can go either way. So it's just a matter of going with what the current reading gives you. And of course, counter to the fact that the euro is absolutely going to be dead, it's rising. This is definitely a function of what the potential is for the U.S. There's this growing concern that more states are going to be shutting down, but it seems to be a bit erratic, where it's, again, the states that have already been in lockdown are going to continue those policies, and the ones that have avoided it or fought back against it are going to continue to do the same. So it just creates for a mess, because, again, you don't get the economies of scale, and it makes it hard for a sustained growth rate at that particular point. And again, until you see an actual agreement of some kind, because right now there's complete paralysis without Congress being decided, and the ongoing debate as to who the president-elect is. I know that the press has determined one thing, but until there's an actual concession and a rollover, it's just hyperbole until the vote. From an ES standpoint, there's some interesting stuff. So we had our, nice cyan under red, boom, go for it. Positive extremes within that. So the expectation for a fill back to that 3587. We'll put that line in there, on there. Definitely gonna, hit the mix. And so something I was looking at, and it was interesting, is these small DOC spread setups that happen within a generally bullish configuration where you then get a little bit of a fade off. Is that the time to jump in when you have a full DOC steel reset? I prefer to wait for more like this situation where you'll get the steel having crossed above and then back below. Because the difference where you have here is all you have is a full DOC steel reset, finding it's cyan over red, but it's not giving you anything because that reset from the steel, short-term buyers, and they can just drive that right back up. It's a bit different when you're already at a peak. You've come back above and you've crossed over, and it's that relational crossover showing you the shift where the orange is moving above steel, steel is moving below cyan. It's the same effect you get when it's above red. Now, your expectation for how much you should expect from it much more limited. In this particular case, I would only be looking at positive extremes from that standpoint. So in this particular case, you've got to weigh the risk to reward because you can have a slightly lower win rate with this comparative to normal, DOC spread where everything's moving in your direction. This would be down to the 36.17 from 27. It's pretty decent risk to reward, and sure enough, it does pay off. But you do get a secondary DOC spread right here, with green now underneath the red, and the red starting to trail lower. And effectively, when it dips below the zero is where I think that you end up with your strongest signaling from that standpoint. You already had a decaying shakeout and everything like that, and at that point, the yellow moves below magenta, and so you're sort of like, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. It's just not moving super fast, and then you get that immediate up move that then is hit right back at it with another. So if you missed the short originally, you get a secondary signal right there with the steel below and the orange above, green already below, and now you're significantly lower from your DOC red. And that one actually carries through much more. Likewise, you get an additional one right here down near the lows, which immediately turns around, which is another one. It's exact opposite configuration. It's not just the steel crossing above, but also that orange dipping all the way down below. It doesn't hurt that it also gives you power mode to crossover. Even if you waited for the blue candle, either way, it still was an impressive move. Ran all the way to the peaks, of course, producing another DOC spread this time again. Rollover above the zero, you had power mode 2 in its decline, where you didn't have that on these previous other pops from up above. And a little early in this one in the sense that you do have magenta over plus 15, which is always this indication that maybe you're just going to have a little bit more of a continuation going across. But it finally gives a clear breakdown as you hit that zero. Again, there's that move of red DOC hitting below zero, or it takes place just like 2 bars later. And then finally begins the cascade lower. You get a couple of pops of steel moving above cyan right here, but again, no dip of the orange. So it's that failure of the orange dip that really gets it. Where it starts to build some momentum is this one right here as you start to peak up. And so then when the P2 comes and you get a clean crossover with the orange below as well as power mode 2, you also have yellow over magenta. It's sort of like, yeah, the stars have aligned. Everything is intact for it. And it makes a move just to the 50% before retracing again, which means, this is something I like to point out when it comes to longs. You often get more than one opportunity. Rarely do you get those delta V's like this one where there's no secondary, dip back or whatever to give you an alternative chance. It's also tougher because depending on your entry, who wants to see them be up and then flip down to a red. And so even if you get stopped out of a situation like that, that's why I always say it's important to stay with it, because you don't know when that turnaround is going to take place. Like in this particular case here where you get the dip below with all the crossovers, and then the confirmation, of course, takes place shortly after with the full green over cyan. Really good action though. I mean, and it becomes just very clear going through there, and then we started the after hours for the new day. Right at a beautiful DOC spread up at the peaks. And we dipped below the red line immediately, so that was like powerfully ugly, and it's just continued to trail lower from there. So that's just been a nonstop runs to the bottom, and still have to fill that positive extreme. That line's there. Got close a couple of times. Hasn't been hit though. And I think, like I said, you're going to see this depending on the action that takes place, in particular with the election stuff and that. And I know there's supposed to be a bunch of filings today, so we'll see if it's anything relevant or not. And take it one day at a time. Keep following those charts. Some good action on our Skype chat with the description of these things, and some members really following it well. So, as always, though, trade well. We'll talk to you later.